parents, what guidance they bring in their world, and these girls are put in seclusion. And for that period of 9 days, they tend to learn so many things about womanhood. They teach them, excuse me, they teach them how to behave when they get their husbands out. Of course, it is not immediately after the Arigian festival that the maidens get married. There are maidens that participate in the festival more than 2-3 times it is allowed. Furthermore, the research elucidates on the socio-cultural significance of traditional African theatrical aesthetics, and it further repudiates the Eurocentric idea. Now, the concept of the Eurocentric idea in this research is not the concept of an Africa without a theatrical performance, but the neo-colonialism of Africans themselves. Now, the Africans, they see a cultural festival as something barbaric, as something, as a taboo. When you see any cultural festival, right, you see people start running away and you hear the blood of Jesus, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, stuff like that. So this research further repudiates the Eurocentric performance. Now, contributions to knowledge, excuse me. It condemns Africa's self-annihilation. It repudiates the Eurocentric idea, like I said, and maintains that Africa, Nigeria as a case study, has total theater embedded in its traditional performances. It also ascertains the educational functionality of traditional African theaters using Arigian Festival as a case study. Now, literature review. In the course of this research, different literatures were reviewed, and in concept of developing the ideas of development of Ikare Akoko as a whole, Ogutomisin discovered that Ikare Akoko is laid on the foundation of Arigian excuse me, of Arigian as a goddess now, not the festival. Arigian is a goddess which Oba Batimei brought from Ile-Ife. And when they arrived at the present location of Ikare Akoko, the Ifa priest made consultations and discovered that the oracle said they should settle under Igi Akere tree, now the Akere tree. And that is where Ikare got its name, Igi Akere, which are metamorphosed into Ikare. Now, the overview of traditional African theater and religion. Oguba, Ogundeji, and Osienekwe maintain that the African traditional theater has a total theater, regardless of, you cannot use the Western canon to measure the African traditional theater. No, it does not work. Now we look at the African traditional theater and its polemics of classification. Under this, we looked at how the African theater is supposed to be classified under anxiology, epistemology, ontology, and the cosmology of the African community. It also went further to survey the African traditional theater and the origin of Arigian festival. Now, the origin of Arigian festival, like I just said, after the goddess had stipulated that the people locate themselves and reside under Igi-Akere. Now, the goddess now made a covenant according to Oba, the immediate past king of Ikare Akoko, His Royal Majesty Oba Samuel Adedapo. Now, the goddess maintained that the maidens from these 7 clans be chosen every year to celebrate her. And that is how the festival started. And according to Prince Adeniro, ever since it started, it has been a successful festival, and maidens voluntarily participate in the festival. Research methodology. Through a qualitative research methodology, this research went through historical designs, interview, covert and overt participation. Now, Arigian Festival is a festival that celebrates the nudity of maidens. To the Ikare Akoko indigene, this celebration is supposed to be seen as the height of honor for a family and for the girl child herself, who is able to come out naked to the whole community to see that, yes, I am a virgin and I'm ready for any suitor that wants me. So it is, there is total secrecy. In fact, till date, if you ask any Ikare indigene about the festival, they will tell you they don't know about the festival. So we had to use both covert and overt participation to get some information about the festival. We went to the library, the Ondo State Cultural Center, using focal person and theoretical framework. journals, textbooks, etc. Now, theoretical framework, the research is laid on the foundation of the ecological system theory of Iri Bronfenbrenner. And this theory maintains that the society, a child now, not the girl child necessarily, the society a child finds his or herself dictates the development. It maintains that the society has more to do in the development of the child, the structures and context of the society. And these structures, according to Brofebena, the interaction within this environment becomes more complex for the child when he or she develops. Reason is that there are some laid down rules, there are some laid down facts that you have to follow. And this ecological system theory maintains that it maintains that a child's education depends largely on the support, guidance, and structure of the environment in which the child finds himself. That is why we decided to use this ecological system theory, because the Ikare Akoko community as a whole celebrates their girl child. Not only the girl child during the Aragea festival, both the girl and the male, although the focus of this research is on the girl child. Research findings. At the end of this research, we discovered that the preservation and presentation of African culture is celebrated more in our traditional festivals. Excuse me. And the Ikare Akoko community, the enhancement of the Ikare Akoko community life in educating the girl child in various aspects has a progress from one position to another. That is, the girl child, as the child progresses from one step to another in the Yoruba community, initially the girl child is a daughter to a mother, next she's a wife to a husband, and then she's a mother to a child, a defender of the child and the husband. And at the end of the day, when the children become successful, the girl, all right, sir, the girl child becomes a witch. Now, also, furthermore, we discovered that the traditional festivals are connected to the axiology and cosmology of the Ikare Akoko community, that is the value and origin of the community itself. Conclusion, this study concludes that no two society can boast of a totally same culture. It also further concludes that in building relationship, unity, cohesion, continuity, and progress, the Ikare Akoko community has continued to celebrate its girl child. And also, it concludes that there is an ordered relationship of the African universe, that is from the dead to the living to the unborn. When the maidens, after they are sanctified at the brook, which is the Aringian goddess brook, they are transposed into connecting to the goddess. And by then, they are seen as occupying the liminal margin between the living and the ancestors. Recommendations. We recommend that a private museum be built in the Palace of the Owale, which will enable all these artifacts and progress of the festival be stored for further research. We also recommend that all the fields of study explore Arigian theater and culture of nudity. This in 2017, the Owale, who was approached by some social workers, said that the maidens should start wearing clothes. And after the first festival, the second festival that they were celebrating, the maidens came out themselves naked. And they refused to wear clothes and maintain that they celebrate their nudity. These are some of the images from the festival which were gotten covertly and some overtly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olani Riti, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we have, thank you, you gave us 2 minutes. And I mean, you didn't spend your time, so I appreciate that. I hope other presenters too will give us 1 or 2 minutes out of their time so that I can see what I understand by what you have just said. Well, I think I understand. I mean, to a good extent, I understand your presentation, and it's very lucid, very, very clear. Well, I'm going to save some questions for the question and answer time.
Okay.
There are some things that I've put down here, which I would like to have clarification. Thank you very much. Okay, so we move on to the next speaker. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, doctor, I'm here, sir.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Good day, everyone. Good day, chair and panelists. My name is Kende Benson Ilegbusi. I'm presenting a paper titled A Joy to Behold, African Traditional Music and the Unmasking of Amuludu Cultural Troupe in the context of social, cultural and socio-political development in Akure land between 2001 to 2020 in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, African traditional music, as we all know, has commanded an influence of scholarship, most especially from historians and musicologists, and the like. And in the course of this debate, sorry, I'm trying to put on to share my screen so that you can see the PowerPoint which I have.
I was about to ask if we can see your PowerPoint.
PowerPoint, okay, sir. Let me try as much as possible to put that in.
If it's not possible, you can.
Okay.
You can move on if it is not possible.
Maybe, okay.
Maybe the engineers will help us to solve that.
All right, sir. So, like I've said, African traditional music, African music has commanded an influence of scholarship. And when we look into the categorization of African music, we would see African traditional music, African popular music, and African arts music. But during the course of this exploration, contemporary historical scholarship on traditional African music has been less when you compare it to African popular music, which in most cases, scholars have devoted more attention to this area, most especially in contemporary times. In fact, the works of Bode Omojola in Yoruba music in the 20th century, identity, agency, and performance, mostly looked at the evolution of African, traditional music, and ended with the ideas of hybridization and how African popular music, emerged, and how these African popular music have taken over, the face of African music, perhaps because of its hybridization or its in connection, with Western styles. So one thing I've tried to look in the course of this, in the course of this work, to look at the intersection between African traditional music and socio-cultural development in Yoruba land. Then using Amuludun, from that word alone, Amuludun, that is make the society happy, a cultural troupe in Akure land, which were able to impart, most especially in areas of socio-cultural development in Akure land from 2001 to 2020. So what I'm able to do in this work is to, use sources from both primary and secondary, that is ethnographical examples, written evidences, at the same time, secondary evidences that cut across textbooks, journals, and the likes. So in the context of my exploration, I was able to identify three core arguments. The first argument is to look at the intersection, that is the connection between African traditional music and socio-cultural development in Yoruba land. While the second, look at the evolution of this troupe, Amuludu cultural troupe in Akure land, looking at its evolution, development, and how it has able to shape the face of Akure land entirely, not especially in the socio-economic and socio-cultural and political development that shaped Akure land from 2001 to 2020. And the last argument I was able to raise is to look at the third argument is to look at how African traditional music could be institutionalized, most especially in our community. Why the last argument, the last core argument looked at the impact, how African traditional music could be preserved, most especially in our society. So in looking at the evolution of Amuludu, cultural troupe, the troupe was established in 2001 by Boyega Aderibigbe. Boyega Aderibigbe is from Ijare in Akure Land. Akure Land is located in southwestern part, of Nigeria. What were the factors? What inspired Boyega Aderibigbe to actually establish this troupe? This is one thing that I've tried to, to look, most especially in the period where, globalization of the rudiment of neocolonialism have taken over the face of, African music in Africa. So in the course of this exploration, I was able to identify the fact that Boyega Aderibigbe first was his inspiration, to actually become an African music practitioner was shaped by two key factors. First was the societal factor, that is the environment, the place of the environment, and the second was the place of the sort of connection that he had with his mother, Dada Ogbegi. Dada Ogbegi, was a herbalist, and at the point of doing rituals, and the likes, Boyega Aderibigbe was able to learn, and had his first contact with African traditional music, and from there, the place of the environment, in terms of the fact that this is a society that holds a special place for cultural development, most especially festivals, masquerade festivals like Egun Onibobu in Akure Land. These were some of the things that actually inspired him to pursue his music in African traditional music. Then again, he also had contact with his friend Koshe Omojuni, who came into the music before him, but he was able to underscore teachings about African traditional music from Koshe Omojuni. And by the time Koshe Omojuni left to other work, Boyega Aderibigbe established this particular troupe in 2001 with 5 members. So, and from there, the Amuludu cultural troupe has evolved, not just from being, the isolated group when it was established in 2001, but it has moved, to be a household name, most especially in Akure Land, and not just Akure Land, in fact, Akure Land and its environs, because this troupe was the first troupe founded by an indigene of Akure Land to take African music outside Akure Land. Before this time, we have had people like Aishif Elemuru, Comfort Omoge and the likes, who were the protagonists of African traditional music. Most of you before the coming of in southwest Nigeria, in northeast, part of Yoruba land. But by the coming of this person, Boyega Aderibigbe, and his troupe, he was able to take the music even beyond. So I was also able to look at the apprenticeship system of how members, are being recruited into this troupe, and to argue, just like Fafunwa, have argued, most especially in his works on history of education, on the relevance of traditional education. In Yoruba land, traditional education was functional, and so it was in the kind of apprenticeship system, education that was introduced to teach children, to inculcate in them the love for traditional African music. Most especially students from 15 to 25 were recruited into the cultural, the troupe between 2003 when they started the apprenticeship system. I also looked at the development of the troupe, most especially in the areas of the impact, that is how it has impacted Akure Land. So when you look at its economic impact, the political impact, the socio-cultural impact, most, especially. But in areas of, the socio-cultural impact, the troupe became very relevant in spreading Akure culture, even beyond Akure Land. to the extent that Akures in the diaspora who are outside the country, most times when they come back home, they enjoy musical performance from this troupe. And not just that, when you look at the economy is both beneficial to the troupe and to those, most especially to those who they played for. The troupe mostly, they performed both stage and on-stage performances. That is stage performances, where they would have to stay in a particular location to perform. Whereas the on-stage performances then involve them moving around from one places to another. That is to remind us of area Larinjo, of the den, where performers move from one location to another. So they were able to bring this. And in fact, in most cases, any location that this performance takes place, from moving from one location to another, especially in beer parlors and some other, in some other places that host people patronize, the person who is, who hosts some of this troupe. So the person who hosts this particular troupe. So that is how it has. And in the area, in the political sphere, but at some point in Akure land, especially during the elections or the last governorship election, the troupe acted and supported, the governorship candidate of the PDP. That's the governorship candidate, of the PDP, where they sing songs like Eli Kaka, Kiki Kaka, Oba Onile Ola, because by then the mandate of governorship in Akure land was seen as an Akure mandate, and just because the governorship candidate of PDP during that period was an Akure man, so they needed to also support. So they also, they contribute most especially in areas of campaigning for this particular, person and the like. So, and when I also move forward.
You have 4 minutes.
Okay.
4 minutes.
I also, okay. So I also look forward to look at the major challenges that this troupe has faced, most especially in areas of spirituality, in the areas of, the economy in terms of funding, some of the challenges that they face, and in the area of globalization, which is in fact their major problem. And according to Boyega during my interview section with him, said people prefers to listen to the African, Afro hip hop, and the like, than to listen to African traditional music. But they are not just doing this, just for doing sake. They are doing this to preserve the culture, of Akure land, and by extension, the Yoruba land. And by looking at how the COVID-19 pandemic, the rules also, in a way, contributed to their development, because during this period, whereas there were laws that were imposed on other practitioners from other musicians, most especially Afro hip hop and the like, Fuji. There were impositions that were placed on the fact that they were not allowed to perform. People were not allowed to move around and the like. Amududu social troupe performed during this period, and this is also to tell us that at some point, despite the COVID-19 laws that were introduced, people didn't totally submit to this, and in all, to the what I have able to put in my paper is to argue that African traditional music must continue to hold a place, most especially in our community. And for this troupe, for this music to continue to hold a place, there is a need to actually preserve. There is a need to support troops, who are major practitioners of African traditional music. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Kainde Ilegusi. Do I pronounce it well?
Yes, doctor, very well, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. You have given us, unfortunately, we couldn't see your PowerPoint or your slides. So, but at least I still follow your paper to some extent. I've put down some questions which I'm going to ask you after the expiration of the first 1 hour, and then let me tell you other presenters too. We're supposed to have 4 authors, 4 presenters, but you are 3. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes more. Maybe after this first 15 minutes round, then maybe you have something more to say about your paper. So you still have opportunity to do that. So Mr. Olusegun Olatunji, you are welcome. All the way from America, right? Tennessee. Yeah. Okay, please, can we have your paper now?
Yeah, thank you, sir, for the time and the opportunity. Okay, can you see my screen?
Oh, yes, yes. Okay, yes.
Yeah, the paper I am to present on this evening is titled Politics, Power, and Gender Identities in Traditional Festival in the Yoruba, in Traditional Festival in Yoruba land between 1897 to 1960. I should clarify that what I intend to do with this particular paper is that I am revisiting a particular argument started by 2 major and world-renowned authors in person of James Matori and Oyeronke Oyewumi. And their major argument forth and back has to do with the coloniality of gender among the Yoruba people. If gender was an organizing principle among the Yoruba people before their encounter with colonial authority, or it was the colonial authority that introduced gender to the Yoruba land. And of course, it was James Matori that started the argument in 1994 through his thesis, whereby he argued that gender was an organizing principle, but later on, Oyeronke Oyewumi came up with another conception that emphasized that gender was not an organizing principle among the Yoruba people of Southwest Nigeria, that the introduction of gender to anything that has to do with the Yoruba people was actually introduced was until the invasion of colonial authority that the issue of gender among the Yoruba people became a major argument. And since the early 20th century, back and forth, authors have produced different contributions to either support or disagree with these 2 authors. But mostly the argument downs to the fact that gender was not an organizing principle. And of course, different studies have tend to come from different perspectives, whereby some have used proverbs, idioms, and even religious, and to some extent festival, to actually show that, to support the argument whether gender was an organizing principle among the Yoruba people or it was not an organizing principle. So most of the existing studies on this particular argument actually come from the perspective of either anthropology, religious studies, and the likes. So historians have not really dig into this discussion of whether gender was an organizing principle or not among the Yoruba people. So what I intend to do with this particular topic, which is eventually my thesis topic, so is that I look into festival among the Yoruba people to support the argument. My argument is in support of Matori that gender was an organizing principle among the Yoruba people. I totally disagree with Oyeronke Oyewumi's argument that gender was not an organizing principle among the Yoruba people. And of course, as I said earlier, some studies have actually used religious, they've used festivals, they've used songs, proverbs, and the like to show that gender was not an organizing, or gender was not or was an organizing principle. Leading among these was the work of Oyeronke Olajubo, a religious scholar herself. Olajubo also shows that using proverbs among the Yoruba people. She emphasized that gender was an organizing principle and showed traces of how Yoruba people tend to use both female and male in whatever they are doing before they had encounter with the colonial authority. And also Jacob Olupono also downs to this issue of gender being an organizing principle among the people, whereby he made use of the Ajay goddess to show that among the people, there is this reference to the Ajay being referred to as female. And because of this, he also agreed with the fact that gender among the people was either socially or culturally constructed before their encounter with the colonial authority. Though another argument as regards the issue of gender being socially or culturally constructed emanated from the perspective of Ajay, which was being termed in Western writing as witches. So different scholars have used going back and forth, arguing this with series of either culture, folklore, and the like. So what I intend to do with this particular paper is that I am adopting two or three festivals, such as I'm using the Egungun Festival, the Gelede Festival, and the Oro Festival to emphasize that even before the coloniality of gender among the Yoruba people actually had a thing for gender. Gender lives and they so much respect gender that it revolves around their festivals during this particular period. So as I said earlier, my argument or my thesis is to show that gender was either socially and culturally constructed among the pre-contact Yoruba people before they had a encounter with the colonial authority. So I made use of Gelede, Egungun, and Oro Festival. But for this particular paper, I emphasize more on Gelede and Oro Festival in this presentation. So among the Yoruba people, Gelede is a festival that is mostly being controlled or being owned by the women in the society. And by women, I think I should make the clarification that when we talk about women in the pre-contact Yoruba society, we are not referring to the entirety of female gender, but rather the mystic women in the society. Those that are being referred to, they can be either Ajay, they are mostly being referred to as Ajay. And as I clarified initially, by being referred to as Ajay, they are not the witches in the Western explorative, but rather these Ajay are known as the Agbalagba Obìnrin. They are believed to have this mystic power, and they are also believed to have reached their menopausal or postmenopausal stage. So because of the evocative power these women control in the society, they were so dreaded by not only by women in the society, but even by all the people within the society. And because of the fact that they are so dreaded in the society, the male, they're being believed to be the authority in the society, look for a way to pacify the women in the society. And because of this, they came up with the Gelede celebration. So Gelede celebration, more or less, was believed to be a women court, a women's society. But despite the fact that Gelede court was a women's society, it is interesting to know that one of the activities within this Gelede festival is actually known as Efe dance. And Efe dance is mostly being controlled or being done by the male in the society. So it is during this Efe dance that men tend to pay homage, tend to pacify women, to let them know that they actually control the society and they should bless them instead of either curse them or instead of doing anything that can hinder the growth or the development of the society. And during this Efe dance, one will see the Efe dancer eulogizing and pacifying the Agbalagba Obìnrin in such a way that say that ẹ̀yin ìyá mi òṣòròǹgà arógbá aṣọ má balẹ̀ Apanimaragun Olokiki Oro. By doing this, they are paying homage to the women and showing that they control the society, despite the fact that it is believed that it was and still a male society, but then the male of this particular period realized the importance and the power control by the female, and they realized that the only medium they can pay homage to them was through the Gelede. So within the Gelede festival or the Gelede court, women had the final say, and they're being dreaded both by the male and the female in the society, to an extent that nothing can be done without paying homage or paying respect to them within the society. Now, if you tend to move away from the Gelede festival, and probably if you come to the Oro festival, we are going to see something different entirely. And something different entirely because within the Gelede festival, it's encompassed both male and female, but women had the higher authority. Their word is final, and Gelede festival, as I said, was mostly being done to pay homage and to pacify the àwọn àgbàlagbà obìnrin in the society. But it was something different entirely within the Oro festival or within the Oro court. Something different entirely because women were not allowed within this particular period in the Oro court. Oro court was and is still strictly male court or male society. So it was such a court that did not welcome women in the society. And of course, there is this Yoruba saying that also supports the Oro ni ọkọ àjẹ́, which simply means that even no matter how powerful the women might be in the society, whether being a menopausal or postmenopausal woman, they were being restricted from the Oro court. In fact, there is this particular argument by the missionaries in Ota back then that they describe a kind of incident whereby Oro hanged two witches known as Aje because they tend to disobey their order. And the missionaries emphasized the fact that because the Oro court was more or less not friendly and was gender biased, that was why the women were being hanged during this particular period. But the attention, the focus here is that Oro court totally excluded women from their society, from their court, irrespective of whether such a woman was Aje or just ordinary person in the society. They were not allowed within the court, and it emphasized the male dominance of the court during this particular period. So the question then is, if the pre-contact Yoruba society was gendered or not gendered? And of course, from the two festivals, talking about the Gelede festival and the Oro festival, it is glaring that before the encounter with colonial authority, gender was something the people actually had used to. That it was not because when the colonial authority came in their midst, that gender were being introduced to them. Gender was something the Yoruba people had among them, and this reflects in their festival. And the major one is, even if you look into the Egungun festival, the Egungun festival tend to welcome both female in the society, whereby they tend to perform or they tend to have the same authority within the Egungun festival. But the Oro festival and the Gelede festival shows that among the Yoruba people, gender was well recognized among them. It was socially and culturally constructed, and it reflected in their festival, and it's also reflected in their day-to-day activities to an extent that the Gelede was being done to pay homage to the women, whereby the Oro court also was being done to show male dominance in the society and to emphasize the fact that there are actually ways that the society tend to control their activities and whatsoever they do before the encounter with the colonial authority. What happened after the colonial incursion was that the gender issue tend to have another nomenclature, and whereby the issue of probably women involvement in some festivals started to be watered down and what have you. So in conclusion, the thesis showed, the argument showed that among the Yoruba people, gender was socially and culturally constructed, and it reflects in the homage being paid to the women through the Gelede festival, and whereby among the male society, Oro also showed that male also have control within the society, and this was being passed out through the Oro festival, whereby the female tend to control the society through the Gelede festival. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Olusegun. I was thinking that if you still have something more to say, that you should go ahead and spend the 5 minutes that said I want to add, because since we don't have the fourth speaker, or should we come back? Should we go, follow the pattern that we've been following from the beginning, or do you want to continue?
No, I think we should follow the pattern that has been necessary.
Okay, all right then. Okay, thank you very much. I also have questions for you, because I'm writing something on power, strategy, and politics in Egungun performance, and the thesis of my work is that the power of a woman is well established and well recognized in Yoruba society, and I've gathered some data to support though my own work is ethnography. I started gathering the data while I was conducting my doctoral when I was doing my doctoral thesis in Iragbiji. And anyway, I think we are going to, after this, I will ask you some questions that I've asked and that I've penciled down, and then I'll collect your email and we exchange ideas. All right. Thank you very much. Now, is the first speaker still there?
Yes.
Please, do you have grace to speak more on your work, since we don't have the fourth speaker? So because this exercise is meant to end by 7 p.m. So can we hear more from you?
All right, thank you, Doc. I would just like to re-emphasize this idea, because many people see the Amridia Festival as a festival where women, girls now, are being coerced to participate. But during the course of this research, we discovered that the girls willingly participate in the festival. In fact, they are happy participating in the festival. They are so joyous. You see this enthusiasm, this happiness, this joy, reaching all over them, that they are able to participate in the festival. Now, after the festival, that is after the performance of Aringia Festival on the 9th day, any maiden that wants to get married after having taken part in the festival is liable to giving the other maidens a token. This can come in form of food, clothes, money, whatever he or she can afford. Then she gives it to the maiden. But the festival is not only restricted to the maidens, the mothers, fathers. The mothers, on the third day, the mothers of the maidens who are participating in the festival go around the streets with strokes of palm frond, hitting the ground and singing songs of warning to the maidens who want to participate, warning them that if they are not maidens, they should rather exit the festival instead of dishonoring the family. Now, in the olden days, wherever there is anybody participating in the festival that is not a virgin, there is a masquerade called Igede. That masquerade usually comes out when the maidens are at the brook of Aradia, swaying its cutlass. And with this cutlass, it beheads any maiden that is not a virgin in the olden days. But these days, we cannot take the rule of law into our hands. So these days, what they just do is after the masquerade had identified the maiden who is not a virgin, then the maiden, the parents who are supposed to be on white attires, the mother and father, as the attire is being spilled with palm oil, and the maiden, they pour palm oil on her, and she leads the other maidens in their procession. And on the day, the final day of the rite, that is where the mother's participation comes in. And the father too, on the final day of the rite, it is believed that that is the day Ariginya goddess visits the earth in Ikare Akoko. And these maidens are not supposed to sleep. So their fathers gather around the Owalis palace and they start entertaining, musical, saying more sort of proverbs. They just try to keep the maidens awake. And with that, the festival is usually a success. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, one of the questions that I've earlier penciled was to ask you why, how do you determine a virgin among the whole lot of the bunch of maidens that come around? So, but now that you have shed lights on that, I mean, that means the festival does not allow for deceit, right?
No, not at all, sir.
Not allow for this.
On
Okay.
the day of the festival, it must not rain. So whenever there is rain, then it is believed there is a maiden among the girls who is a virgin.
And what month does the festival?
It usually takes place between April and May.
When is it fixed?
April and May. Yes, at the beginning of the rainy season.
April and May, there is not so much rain. Why not in August or July?
So you see, anyway. That is why it shouldn't be rain. So when there is rain,
you should have asked that question. Why not set it in July or August or June, and see whether there will be rain or not.
There'll be efficacy in the no
anyway,
rain.
I'm just joking. After all, Osun-Osogbo usually comes in August, and that's the rainy period in Nigeria. And there won't be rain until the end of the whole thing in the evening. So during the day, there will never be rain. But when the Aruba goes back home, if you are not, if you don't leave the scene early enough, you will get drenched before you get back home. Anyway, thank you very much, Olanireti. And can we go back to Kehinde? Please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I think I would like to add on the, and submit on the ground that the preservation of culture, Yoruba culture, entirely is rooted in is very fundamental. In fact, it's one of the fundamental reasons why Amududu's cultural trope has remained very relevant in Akure land. And the fact that despite globalization, despite the forces from neo-colonial elements, this trope has, I've seen this journey, I've seen this tax as a way of life for them. So, and the need to preserve, African cultures and history, it's a major task that is rooted in African music. To achieve this, there is a need to support the major practitioners of African traditional music, because these are people that are doing a kind of music that is rooted in its originality, that is rooted in its originality, in its pure form, not hybridized or of any kind. Unlike the other genres of African music, where we have the popular music and the African art music. So there is a need, for more contemporary focus, most especially historical focus that that documents the history of some of these truths in our society today. Thank you very much.
Okay, it seems the fourth speaker just finally joined us. Ruth, can you unmute yourself, please?
Okay, good evening.
Yeah, welcome.
Good evening.
Finally. The rule is that you speak for minutes. The rule is that you speak for 15 minutes, and then there will be question and answer. Out of your 15 minutes, we didn't have any premonition that you are going to show up, but thank God you finally show up, yeah, because I had already given some of your time to other speakers that were around. But let's go quickly. You have only 15 minutes. Then there will be question and answer.
Okay.
The floor is yours
now. Paper is talking about mediatization of Ndokwa performance and the aesthetic dynamics of African indigenous carnival. Our abstract deployed Akwang's medialization theory, and it considers the uniqueness of Ndokwa masquerade performances. Article 6 to examine the mediatization of aesthetic dynamics in the masquerade performances of Ndokwa people, Delta State. As we know, masquerade performances and carnivals are spectacular indigenous theatrical activities that involves the impersonation of fictive characters by costumed performers in Nigeria and indeed all African countries. And this art form shares similar elements with that is culturally significant in terms of creativity and social commentary. The Ndokwa performance during festive celebrations have been on for decades, and it has continued up till date. In fact, it is quite recently that I wrote something on women representation in Ndokwa in the masquerade performances. Ndokwa people are from Delta State. Actually, they are the second largest group in Ndokwa in Delta State, and they have 3 local government areas. One is in Ndokwa West, Ndokwa East, and Obiaruku, and their communities have been known for years. Their traditional literature and practices is part of what makes up their festive performances too. Now, I want to go into what mediatization and society means. The media are both a component of society and culture. As an independent entity, the media sits between all other cultural and social organizations which shape our mutual interactions. The media takes materials from our society, because without the society, there is no media. It repackages them and gives them back to the society as culture. The process of this symbiotic relationship between the media and society engenders a kind of mediation whose profinity is invaluable in cultural communication. But as a word, mediatization has been there. It originated from Germany, and it has different, I'll say, different names they call it, but the most popular of them all is mediatization, while some scholars conceptualize it as a meta process by which everyday practices and social relations are increasingly shaped by mediating technology and media organization. Others claim that mediatization relates to changes associated with media communication and their development. And some others say that mediatization implies a process through which core elements of a social or cultural activity assume media forms. Going down, we see that we conceive mediatization of society as a process of society becoming increasingly reliant on media and their logic. This is the institutional and technological modus operandi of media, including the way in which media distributes material and symbolic resources and operate with the help of formal and informal rules, which humans as social beings help in transmitting. Mediatization, therefore, is a concept for reconstructing today's media-related changes, as well as the corresponding social transformation of everyday life, culture, and society. Now, going to the global cultural space and the Ndokwa performance and masquerade performances. This masquerade is a common pastime in most African countries, in the Caribbean, Europe, and Americas. It is an instance of African culture being preserved, as well as one of the most unique forms of collective cultural expression or cultural communication. The masquerading tradition is a means of bringing people together, unifying them, and placing them at the center of culture and our society. The performative nuances of masquerade therefore plays a vital role in maintaining cultural heritage because they are deeply rooted in the community's history, which help in passing on information and experiences from generation to generation in a very concrete way there. Such masquerade acts are comparable to carnivals in the Western world in that they share the responsibility of forging relationships and connections with all individuals who believe in the transformative potential of such forms of performance or theater. The masquerade tradition encompasses a cultural or religious rite, festival, procession, music, dance, in which masquerade and costumes are worn. These indigenous performances have been transformed into public celebrations, combining elements of spectacle, street mask, street parties with costumes, makeup, and choreography. They have a plethora of celebrations with varied masquerade as that can take place every year from January to June, then October to January again throughout the dry season. That's for the Ndokwa people. These artistic productions are always vibrant, unique, and robust, as well as rich in the cultural and dramatic aesthetics of these masquerade performances. These festivals are rapidly growing global phenomenon that transverse a number of divides from traditional to modern, religious to commercial, and authoritarian to democratic agendas. So have become a bustling component of the emerging cultural and creative industries and a money spinner in many growing economies, including that of Nigeria. Carnival and other festivals of traditional societies have a long and varied history of philosophical interpretation. It is typical of the modern festival, which is best viewed as a heterogeneous anthology rather than a cohesive narrative or even an organic dialectical performance. Both the host community, the tourists, gain much from Carnival's rich and valued culture, as well as that of our tradition. Although hybrid cultures can be found in everyday life in different societies, it is improved rhetorically and performatively in Carnival, thus providing significant economic opportunities for entrepreneurs from all socioeconomic strata in the emerging new economy. The uniqueness of Ndokwa, selecting Ndokwa masquerades, and the mediatization of culture. African traditional masquerades are seen as spiritual symbols rituals that reflects people's social and religious life with deep ritualistic, sociological, and entertaining functions and meanings that are persisted even as people and societies change. The uniqueness of these masquerades in Ndokwa land are valuable products which combine the features of carnival as celebrations of fluid cultural exchange that appears to have led to hybridized cultural performances among the people. These aesthetic dimensions of these masquerade contribute to the overall performance of the masquerade carnivals as found in Ndokwa land. From the Ezemo to the Palabo and the rest of other masquerade performances in Ndokwa land, we see that these masquerades have their uniqueness, and that's why people go for them. I'll take, for example, the Ezemo masquerade. This masquerade has an elaborate, elegant, and magnificent nature of a king, dressed in a loosely fitted red costume, reaching the ankles with a tint of white around the neck. This ensemble represents the corporate spirit of the dead and a way of enclosing the spirit to the cultural world of the living. The mask is considered a non-representational one with a simple carving and a decoration in geometric shapes, which combines which symbolizes an aura of seriousness and the unusual that festivals are meant to portray. The Ukwata masquerade carrier is decorated with kambu and the native chalk with coral beads for both the neck, hands, and ankles. This carrier is bare-chested, but adorned with a loincloth on which colorful head ties of women are knotted. But on his head is a helmet mask with a live eagle strapped on it. The OJ masquerade has a crest mask that has the human face on both sides, and eagle, they use the feathers of different birds to decorate it. So also is the Palabo masquerade. He dons a crest mask built with feathers of all birds in varying colors. The masquerade costume is in a short, free and wide-shouldered flowing top designed with open sides, one on a short skirt, like that of a flying bird, portraying the majesty, grace, speed, and strength of the deity. The nature of the costumes allows the masquerade to take fleet steps and make symbolic movements and gestures. The Igochi masquerade is over 10 feet tall. It dons a human-like mask and adorned in a unique way with expensive and assorted multicolored costumes. These costumes exude the wealth and status of the community, as well as the power of the ancestors, which facilitates the audience. The Odogu is an aggressive masquerade with a frightening mask, which may include human heads, figurines, reptiles, or water creatures, and with multicolored clothes or raffia straw with various ornaments and embellishments. It assumes youthful strength through the use of a mask that suggests revolt and intimidation. And finally, the Mbao masquerade. This masquerade has a huge and larger than life frame with a ponderous body achieved through costumes made of raffia straw and other materials. This conically shaped masquerade, though masculine in nature, showcases feminine features with a beautiful white or black silky hair. You know, the potential of the above highlighted masquerades is that their contribution to a new economy in a mediatized environment is high. In the words of Akwang, the theater's mediatization therefore ensures that there is meaningful communication between the actor and the performance, as well as the audience and the general public, as evidenced by its background involvement, immediacy, and intermediacy. This hypermedium is the only art capable of embracing all other arts without being dependent on one of these in order to be theater. And it exhibits a unique form of medial mobility that can incorporate different media into a physical context while maintaining their materiality. With the media's central role in embedding and supporting contemporary culture, mediatization becomes even more significant. The new media, therefore, has progressed to the point that we can now locate other ethnicities who share values from all over the world. Although mediatization of culture reinforces and expounds the realm of media culture, it has become increasingly important for human activities, social relations, and other aspects of life. In this study, we have considered the mediatization of aesthetic dynamics, dimensions of Ndokwa masquerade performances in Ndokwa, Nigeria. We posited that mediatized forms, the Ndokwa masquerade performances can readily contribute to the sociocultural and socio-economic well-being of Ndokwa land, as well as that of the country. Such a deliberate effort will help to make the masquerade acts more culturally viable and economically rewarding. This is because they will readily fit into the new economy where cultural and creative industries, which they are part of, are in the commanding heights of the economy. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation. We are waiting on the chair. Hello, Dr. Adwale, are you there?
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
Okay.
The network here is very, very bad. It's very, very
Wow.
bad. So
Sorry.
I don't know if it is from my side or from the secretariat where they are recording us. I mean, so I really don't know what the problem is. But anyway, thank you very much, Ruth. I can assure you that I didn't hear most of what you say, and then what makes it more problematic was that you didn't have a PowerPoint. You didn't show the slide of what you were saying.
Oh my
And the
God.
network was very, very.
Sorry. I had PowerPoint. I don't know. Sorry. So what do I do?
Well, I don't know. I think Dr. probably have the network issue again. So I guess while we are waiting for him to come back, I still have my, okay, he's back.
Okay. Sorry about that. This is the network. So we have 60 more minutes. I think there were some questions that have been posted. Can we attend to those questions? Somebody directed his question to Shegun.
Yeah.
Did you see the question?
Yeah,
can you please?
Yeah. Okay. As I said initially, while doing the presentation, that this is actually a work in progress. Yeah, I did a paper for one of the class I took last semester, which is the one I presented. And mostly for this particular presentation or for this particular paper, I mostly use oral traditions, whereby I rely more or less on oriki, proverbs, and some other chants among the people that indicate and that shows the efficacy of women. But for the entire thesis I'm working on, I am to use historical method, whereby I will use the primary and secondary data, mostly using the archival and observatory, observation participatory, and conduct some oral interview. Another question asked is that why is the Gelede and Uru an important site for my counter argument? Well, the reason I rely on Gelede and Uru is that looking at these two festivals in the pre-contact Nigerian society and even in the post-colonial period, nothing has really changed within the festival. Both festivals are still being dominated by women and men, and they still perform the same purpose. The Gelede still remain an avenue to pay homage or to pacify the women, whereas Oro still remain, despite there has been series of agitation that Oro festival tend to impose on the right of the citizen or the women, so to say, by excluding them from the festival. But then culture is culture. It is the people's belief, and still up till now, women are still yet to be part of this particular cult. Though I think recently in, or like 5 or thereabout years ago in Ogun State, there was a kind of mayhem because of this particular festival, whereby the practitioner of the festival embark on their festival and some religious belief. I think Muslim now, the Islam also embark on their activities in some part of the Yewa in Ogun State. And this resulted in a form of mayhem among the people that led to the government of the state then to come in order to resolve the issue. So another question asked is that, does it matter that the society that Oyeronke's book engage differs from the society that you engage? Then lastly, are these Yoruba society homogeneous groups? Well, I wouldn't say per se that whether it matters the society Oyeronke book engage differs from my own or not. Though Oyeronke's book was mostly in a part of Oyo, but then the area I am to look to also emanated or migrated from Oyo. They have the Oyo origin. So more or less, they share the same thing in common. And mostly, they all belong to the Yoruba region or to the Yoruba land, though there are different culture in some extent. And of course, the Yoruba, to some extent, could be said to be homogeneous, though they have their differences and there are some cultures and social engagement that are actually not, that are different among different different people within the region being referred to as the Yoruba region. And another question being asked by someone was that I mentioned using Egungun, Gelede, and Uru. That why did I lay emphasis on just Gelede and Uru? As I said earlier, I emphasize Gelede and Uru in this particular presentation because these are the two festivals that I have enough detail on at this particular moment. As regard the Egungun, the information I had on the Egungun was not detailed enough for me to come up with a kind of argument in this particular aspect. So that is why I limited this presentation to just Gelede and Uru to show that gender was socially and culturally constructed among the Yoruba people in the pre-colonial period.
Okay, thank you very much. I think somebody has asked Kennedy, can you unmute yourself? Somebody has a question, Amoludu. Okay.
Yes, Jose. If Amoludu is a religious troop, well, Amoludu is a cultural troop, like I've identified in my paper, but their performance mostly cuts across, both sacred and secular. And by sacred, I mean they involved, they perform even religious rites. But in Akure land, they are mostly involved in most of the religious rites that takes place, in the palace. So they are mostly involved in most of these things. Then by secular, I mean they also, try to perform in respect to other, areas, in respect to other development in Akure land, be it political, societal issues, and most especially issues that relate to, teaching morals in the society. So I think I've been able to answer that question.
Okay. All right. Ruth, I think there's a question for you too. Can you please?
The function of the costume is both secular and sacred. I didn't touch the sacred aspect because that one majorly concerns the people in the area. But the secular aspect of it is because of its beauty. It has these aesthetic functions that whenever you see, you want to identify with some of these masquerades. Apart from the odogu that is aggressive, assume is not always beautiful. It's painful that I don't know how to fix the the PowerPoint on my phone, because I'm using my phone now. The costumes are quite beautiful. If you look at if I talk, let me just use my phone to show you some of these pictures. Look at the Mount Masquerade, quite beautiful. And if you go to the Parabo, the feathers up there, the crest mask is made with feathers of different birds. And when you see these costumes, it attracts you. You want to go close, you want to watch them, their dance steps, the songs that the participants sings while they perform, and all those stuff. For the sacred nature of the costumes, I didn't go into it because it does not really tally with what I'm doing now. I'm talking about the mediatization, the media aspect of these festive masquerade performances as it brings money. We are not looking at the spiritual aspect. Thank you.
Okay, so your concern is the economic signification of the performance.
Yes.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right. Can we listen to you for? Olani Reti? Can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Like I have another question for you. You've answered the way a virgin is determined, and what is the implication if somebody come out with deceit. Now, what is the spiritual signification of the is it Arigion, or how did you pronounce it? Arigia
Yes.
performance. What is the spiritual implication? If it is not done? If it is not done, you said it is done in April or whatever. If it is not done for a set of needs, what happens? Would the society collapse or whatever? What happens?
Thank you, sir. It is believed that Arigia is supposed to be performed yearly, and her adventure, because it has never happened, but her adventure such does not happen in any year. One, it is believed that there wouldn't be a robust harvest. That is one.
Oh.
Two, it is also believed that the community will be plagued with sickness, famine.
Oh.
And another thing, when a maiden is discovered to not be a virgin, and this is
to lie.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
When there is deceit.
Yes, when there is deceit, it is believed that it will affect the reigning king. And this actually happened in 2019, where a maiden was discovered to have deceived the team and was picked out. And 2 months after the immediate past Owale died. Of course, there were medical conditions identified and everything, but it was widely believed in Ikare Akoko that the failure of the festival might have influenced the death of the king.
Okay. Okay. What about the peak, during the peak of COVID, that social activities was generally clamped on in every part of the world? I mean, what happened? Was there
yes,
still?
it was performed. It was performed,
Really?
but there was no feast. They didn't allow audience members, because yearly, on the 9th day, there are usually a feast at the palace of the Owale. But in the year 2020, there was no feast. The maidens were just put in seclusion, and for the period of the 9 days, and they went for their prayer and did their walk around the town. That was it.
So it was performed without the usual fanfare.
Yes, sir.
And that doesn't have any spiritual implication. I mean,
the audience is just another arm of the theater that completes the theater, not basically for the efficacy of the spirituality of the festival.
But okay, and thank God you brought up theater. If the stage is ready, the actors are ready, and there's no audience, theater is not complete.
Well, the theater is not complete without the audience, but in this case, we had a situation of COVID-19, so the theater had to go on.
Okay, all right. Thank you, every one of you. You have spoken well, and I think you have attended to the questions that you were asked. We have 3 more minutes. I don't know if you still have anything to say. 1 minute. Is there anybody want to say anything more for 1 minute?
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. I think what I want to say is not particular to my own research, but in respect to the work of Olusegun. Now, because my undergraduate study was actually on gender, though I covered policing, officers' wives, and the like. But one thing that I am peculiar about is the fact that the bridge between the gender, how gender actually influenced the roles of women and men, most especially from pre-colonial, then the transformation that were introduced during colonial period. So I would like to ask that would it be right to some extent to argue that colonialism mostly pronounced the way gender, in a way, conditioned the roles of both women and men. That is, it was there during the pre-colonial era, but colonialism mainly pronounced it, in a way.
Yeah, of course. If more than anything, colonialism actually brought the issue of gender to limelight. When we think about the fact that most especially if you use Nigeria as a case study, when British came, they tend to use the male, that is the native authority, to rule the people, and totally neglected the female. Or in some situation, of course, there are some towns in Yoruba land and other towns that are being ruled by women. So even in such situation, male tend to take over the leadership of such town. And this was mostly because this is what was in style in Europe as at that particular period. And then before this encounter among the Yoruba people, it was never so. Male had their own role and female had their own role, even when it has to do with the leadership and what have you. And that is what that mostly showed in the Egungun festival, whereby both male and female tend to have the same authority within the Egungun festival and as regard the leadership role of this particular festival. So gender was more pronounced before the encounter with, gender was pronounced before the encounter with colonial authority. But then when colonial came, what they did was for their own benefit, they made it to be more of a bad thing among the people, then most especially the missionaries, because there's this archival document I am presently reading, whereby the missionaries presented one of these festival as being devious because they believe that it totally neglected the female or the women from being in their midst, and because of that, they do that to take over the town.
Okay, Olusegun, thank you so much, and thank you everybody. I really enjoy your presentation, and it's time up. So I wish you best of luck in all your endeavors. Thank you so much, and bye bye.
Okay, good night, everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Nice
Thank
day.
you.
Bye.